How many of you know that India and China have signed 3 accords between 1993 and 2005? Yet there is always constant friction along the line of actual control, which is not defined on both sides. Both sides find it convenient that this LAC is existing on somewhere nebulously along the two borders. But then India never did have a border with China, did it? Well, what happened? Well, China walked into Tibet in 1950, October 7th to be precise, and then occupied it completely by 1951. So, where do we stand now? Is China going to invade India? Because a lot of buzz, a lot of talk now saying that China is using its salami tactics to just take a little bit of land here, a little bit of land here. Every time it will commit an act of aggression, grab a piece of land, and then sit down and talk about borders. So this has been going on for a long time. Somehow India never finds it objectionable to say, okay, you want talk, you first go back to where you came from and then we will talk. I don't know why that never seems to happen. So India always plays cautious, and aggressive is what CCP would be always. So CCP's aggressive stance, what gives it this chutzpah, this feeling that it is superior? Well, we'll find out what it is as we go through this slide deck. It's an important one. I request all of you to please like this video, and if you have not subscribed to our channel, kindly subscribe to our channel. As geopolitical rivals, India and China share 4,057 kilometers line, a line that is pretty much drawn in snow because, it's not exactly there. Both troops go into the other side's territory and then they come back, but sometimes they just stay on. That's what China typically does. After the communists came to power in China in 1949, India was one of the first to embrace the Mao Zedong-led regime. Why did it do that? Well, only Mr. Nehru can explain that. For some reason, Sardar Patel never seemed to have had any say in India's foreign policy for the limited 3 years that he lived and worked as the first Home Minister of India. It was only after Tibet's annexation in 1951 that the Han Chinese first appeared on India's Himalayan frontiers. The month-long 1962 war, ending in China's triumph, sowed the seeds of rivalry. Even as China annexed Tibet, India continued to court it, seeing it as a benign neighbor. Nehru's huge blunder, I don't think I should be calling it just a blunder. Nehru admitted that he had not anticipated the callousness with which China took over Tibet. This man wanted to completely dismantle India's army after independence. Said, we don't need it. We're not going to fight anyone. And it was only Sardar Patel, he probably hit him with a brick and said, look what Pakistan is doing on the border when they were trying to annex Kashmir. And I think somewhere, the realization struck with him. Lots of interesting stories. The first army chief of Pakistan was a Britisher, and so was the Indian. And if you think that there was some sort of collusion between these two to allow Pakistan to occupy Kashmir, there definitely was. In fact, there was so much that these two used to converse in French, thinking that the blossoming Indian intelligence had no one who could speak or understand French. Unfortunately for them, there were several, and it is believed that when the army chief of India, the one that was British, was given a send-off, this man told him bye in French, much to his consternation. So this is what happened. Nehru was so benevolent towards China that he refused to occupy the vacant seat of China, because what happened was United States threw China out, PRC out, and in its place it wanted to have India take that, and this is in UN Security Council, and Mr. Nehru generously said, no, we won't do it. I don't know why all this benevolence towards China. I don't know. Maybe he had a girlfriend or two from China. Who knows? Nehru was taken largely unawares by the Chinese military attack on Tibet. He had a lousy defense minister, I'm telling you. When Tibet appealed for international assistance against Chinese aggression at the UN in 1950, India opposed it. And you know what? 1909 onwards, up until 1951, when India pulled out all its things from Tibet, India actually ran its postal service. 1950, the PLA occupied the then independent Tibet and nibbled at Indian territories. This was not termed as expansionist. When the Indian army belatedly sought to set up posts to stop further Chinese encroachments, Beijing dubbed it a provocative forward policy. The largely one-sided Panchsheel. I don't even know why he kept harping on this Panchsheel, Panchsheel, Panchsheel. Incorporated a formal Indian recognition of the new Chinese control over Tibet, forfeiting all the extraterritorial rights and privileges it had enjoyed in Tibet. This is what I'm talking about. India agreed to withdraw its military escorts stationed at Yatung and Gyanse and to hand over the postal, telegraph, and public telephone services operated by India in Tibet. And for what? I don't know. See, this family is very generous. When giving away, they give away everything. This is my opinion. Dalai Lama's asylum. In March 1959, spiritual leader Dalai Lama escaped from his homeland in Tibet amid a Chinese crackdown. After 2 weeks of trek, he reached India and demanded autonomy for Tibet. India was Dalai Lama's biggest supporter for the Tibetan rebellion in 1959 and the following decades. Mutual political trust between China and India has completely evaporated and the two countries have turned hostile. Now, there were many accords that India signed with China. In the years after the Panchsheel Agreement, Sino-Indian relations became tense with Chinese cross-border encroachments culminating in a full-fledged Chinese military attack in 1962. India did not restore diplomatic relations with China, broken by the 1962 war until after Mao's death in 1976. In 1981, India and China agreed to open negotiations on finding ways to resolve their border disputes. More than 4 decades later, these negotiations are still continuing with little progress in settling the disputes. The two sides have signed 3 wanted border-related accords. This is what I was mentioning at the beginning of this monologue. The 3 wanted border-related accords are 1993 agreement to maintain peace and tranquility along the line of actual control, although there is no mutually agreed line of control, let alone an actual line of control. 1996 Accord on confidence-building measures in the military field. 2005 agreement identifying 6 guiding principles for a settlement of the frontier disputes. However, immediately after this, Beijing claimed additional Indian areas. China, which occupies 1/5 of Kashmir, Gosthana. They call it Aksai Chin, but I don't know why India should be insisting on calling it Gosthana. India keeps calling it as Aksai Chin. Has a 3-pronged policy to build pressure on New Delhi over Kashmir. It has enlarged its footprint in Pak-occupied Kashmir. I've said this many times. Through strategic projects and PLA deployment there, it has attempted to question India's sovereignty over Kashmir, and it has officially shortened the length of the Himalayan border it shares with India by eliminating the 1597-kilometer line along the Chinese-held Kashmir. This is the area that India gave up. That is what is called as Aksai Chin by China, but India used to call it Gosthana. For some reason, even our own Babus seem to have forgotten Gosthana. I don't know, I think I'm one of the few who keeps referring to it as Gosthana. Now, there is another interesting thing. There's a place called Shaksgam Valley, which Pakistan, which never owned this place, it gave it off to China. So people say that even Gilgit has been sold to China because you know that there are enclaves in Gilgit city which have Chinese-speaking people with Chinese signs. Now, diplomatically, China is a contended party, having occupied the Gosthana Plateau, which provides the only accessible Tibet-Xinjiang route through the Karakoram passes. India chooses to press claims on additional Indian territories, arguably as part of a grand strategy. You see the area Shaksgam Valley that has the most amount of water in the world, I heard, in terms of density. China's aggression. China began building a highway through India's Ladakh region to link Tibet with Xinjiang. China chooses to press claims on additional Indian territories, arguably as part of a grand strategy to gain leverage in bilateral relations and, more importantly, to keep India under military and diplomatic pressure. Since 2006, China has publicly raked up the issue of Arunachal Pradesh, which it claims largely as its own. India's warming relationship with Washington has only emboldened Beijing to up the ante through border provocations, resurrection of its claim to Arunachal Pradesh, and other diplomatic needling. Remember, I told you yesterday about 1,600 Hindus and about 120 Buddhists being held captive. I guess it's anybody's guess as to who could be funding all that stuff. Also, trouble is flaring up again in Manipur. India has been beefing up its defensive deployments in Arunachal Pradesh, Sikkim, and Ladakh to prevent any Chinese land grab. It also has launched a crash program to improve its logistical capabilities through new roads, airstrips, and advanced landing stations along the Himalayas. Against this geopolitical background, India can expect no respite from Chinese pressure. I have been writing on P Gurus a lot about what China has been doing and about how some people inside India are actually working on its behalf. I think I mentioned this to you before. The Galwan incident, April 2020, as early as April 2020, Indo-Tibetan Border Police, ITBP. This had detected along the borders the Chinese buildup on the other side. Now, there was an intelligence dispatch that was sent to the Home Ministry. Interestingly, the Indo-Tibetan Border Police, ITBP, comes under the Home Ministry, not under the Indian Army. And a junior secretary or a joint secretary, takes this report. It's a piece of paper, telex or fax, whatever you call it. And then he puts it in his drawer, seals it, and he goes off for vacation for 2 weeks. Nobody comes to know until the Chinese are breathing down in the borderline. Then India goes seeking to Russia for advice. What should we do? What should we do? And Russia said, don't worry. The Chinese are just doing some exercises. Bald lie. Chinese moved in and India was caught napping. It's all those, that lake that was there. I'm forgetting the lake with many finger this, finger that, all that stuff. So India has a lot of people working for China inside, including some newspapers, in my opinion. And it is amazing that India continues to think that there is no encroachment or incursions along the nebulous line of actual control. China needs to be taught a lesson. And then the other thing that happened was in Arunachal Pradesh, thanks to help from US, timely help, satellite information, and so on, India could ambush a Chinese party which wanted to take over some more territory in Arunachal Pradesh. India quickly captured about 50 Chinese prisoners and their leader put up a white flag. And then what did India do? They gave them all away in the next round of talks. God damn it, why do you have to just give away everything? Why can't you hard bargain? Why can't you say you get the BUTT out of this place and then we will let go of these people? I don't understand this part about India, guys. Way too benign, in my opinion. I mean, they encroached. They wanted to take over. They were getting ready to kill some of the soldiers in the outposts. India just happened to get to know that plan beforehand, and therefore they could hit back before the Chinese realized it. But why does India behave so benevolently when it comes to hard bargaining? Every time the Chinese invite India for talk, India goes to talk. Why can't India just hold on? I don't know, guys. I don't think America would do something like that, which is why China is afraid of America. That's all for now. I don't know where this is going to come, but it's a long line. And like I said again, India is not still fully equipped to handle any kind of intrusion or aggression from the Chinese side. Remember that a bullet train is now within 40 kilometers of the border at Arunachal Pradesh. This bullet train starts from Lhasa. And so they can quickly bring in enforcement if they want to. So whether they are going to do something like that and attack India in Arunachal Pradesh or somewhere else is a moot point. But certainly they are raking up trouble in the northeast now. Thanks for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe to our channel. Don't forget to click on the bell button for notifications.